Welcome to the Inside Slant Podcast, brought to you by JayhawkSlant.com. Here's the staff from Jayhawk Slant, the online leader in KU coverage since 1999.
Hey everybody, this is Randy Withers. Welcome into another edition of the Inside Slant podcast from JayhawkSlant.com. I think we've got a really good show lined up for you with the whole staff here and locked in. We're going to talk KU men's basketball, Kansas Jayhawks football, football recruiting, basketball recruiting. We're going to have a really great guest covering one of the hottest topics right now in all of college sports. The name is Jason Booker. Jason is the Deputy Athletic Director who oversees external affairs and revenue generation. He's going to join us on the Slant Podcast to talk about revenue sharing, name, image, and likeness, all the things surrounding NIL, and all that everybody needs to understand about this new age of college sports. He's also going to give us an update on the football stadium construction project and what's going on with the new booth. Before we get into that, hey, let's just get rolling. I'm going to get started. Welcome in my man on the men's basketball beat from the Allen Fieldhouse Suite, my buddy Shea Wildeboer. Shea, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, buddy. It's a quiet Friday night. We got Booker coming. You know, Booker's one of the many dudes up there that are really good people. Right? I don't know if you met him. I know John knows him well. Just a good guy. Just a really good guy. So it'll be nice to have him on.
Absolutely. And you know, you're not the first person that has said that about Jason. He's a guy that is extremely knowledgeable about what he does. He's passionate about the Jayhawks, and he is extremely good at what he does. He's great at his job, and I'm like you. I'm excited to hear from him tonight.
And he's really cool, kind, and like not one of those guys that is too cool, or I mean he's a people person, and it's great that he's going to come on and join us.
Absolutely. Before we go any further, let me go ahead and introduce our guy on the Kansas football beat and the publisher of Jayhawk Slant, Mr. John Kirby. JK, how you doing today?
Fellas, I'm doing good. What in the hell's Booker paying you guys?
Booker's a good dude, man.
Dude,
you know,
he's
he might have slipped me a little $100 handshake. You know,
right.
Hey, Booker's not that cool.
I'll tell you, anytime I see him, like I'll see him at some basketball games, or if I see, Travis Goff, just listen. I mean, listen, you guys, these guys are busy and they got stuff going on. And the one thing that's cool about these guys is, hey, man, we appreciate you being here. Thanks. How you doing? How's just guys that just you wouldn't know that they're in the positions they're in if you just saw them out and had a conversation with them.
Well, Shay, I'll tell you one thing. Let me tell you one thing. And I've been around both of them quite a bit. Okay,
Right.
In their professional setting of their job. There's something that always stands out to me because you brought up Goff too, and Booker's coming on the show, is the fact that they're Jayhawks,
yes.
right? So sometimes you don't see from other people, and I'm not saying you've got to go to your alma mater to be a good athletic director or work in the athletic department, but with those two guys, you see a little bit extra flair. You see it cares to them because they went to KU. So, I've always told people that's cool that they were able to come back, but you can tell the passion that they have and the drive to make KU as good as they could make it. So, no, you guys are right. They're good guys and, do a good job. And we'll hear from Jason here coming up.
Awesome. Good
You know,
dude.
it's like you say, Shay, you've got the way you were talking about it, and it's occurred to me on a couple occasions. It's like you say, they've got big titles, but these aren't guys that act like they're too cool. They're
Right.
always willing to say hi, stop and talk, and like you said, they're hey, glad you're here. Good to see you. How you doing? Just personable people that fit in really well, and they help set a tone around the athletic department that, I mean, makes it clear they're about business, and we all know that. But at the same time, it's warm and it's welcoming, and especially if you're a Kansas fan, if you're a Jayhawk at heart, they've always got a minute to stop and say hi.
Right. Like when the KU won the title in New Orleans a few years back, I remember standing on the court, the celebration, and Travis came up and said, "Hey, I think it was me and a couple other guys, fellas, thanks for being here. Thanks for always covering us. Thanks for doing things the right way." And they just won the title, and he's coming up, and I mean, it's just stuff I don't know if you see elsewhere. It's just I mean, it's just good guys can approach, and it's a good feeling to know that you're welcome, to know that you're wanted, that know that you can be there and be okay. So it's no, those guys are great,
But I
great
can tell
guys.
you that I can tell you this though. There's a business side too.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
Oh
they're
And
yeah,
we
about business.
and we don't see that. And when stuff's going wrong or stuff needs fixed or corrected and you're on the receiving end, I promise you that when you get in those guys' office, when you're not doing your job,
oh
they can bring the thunder too.
oh
So
oh,
yeah.
oh. I want none of that. No, nope.
I
I can imagine.
I don't doubt that at all. Let's go ahead and get into some men's basketball talk here, Shay. This team has won four of their last five, and that is something that we shouldn't take that lightly. They're off to a really solid start and are playing well right now. This team has, they've had a difficult schedule to open the year. What have you seen from this squad, looking back to the win over Tennessee, to the tough loss to UConn, and then a blowout win in the border war against Missouri?
Yeah, let me say this first, Randy. This is like nothing against this isn't being negative against the last 2 years. But this team is just fun. You can tell that these guys care. You can tell they're passionate. You can tell they want it. Like to me, Trey White might be the biggest surprise of this team. I mean, just a dude that's come in and played exceptionally well early on. He's bought in. He's become a team leader and just a guy that game in and game out, especially with Darren out, that KU can count on, which I didn't expect. Yeah, but no, listen, these guys have played great against Tennessee. They're down 12 in the second half, and you get, Marco Jackson, who hasn't played or hasn't had a big game at all really in his career, came out and had 17. Melvin Council had 17. And guys just making plays again. Trey White had 14 and 6, and an assist. And you look at the UConn game, and the thing about the UConn game to me, Randy, is they couldn't score the ball. I mean, they shot like 32% from the field. They just couldn't get anything going. Tried hard, shots just weren't falling. And then Missouri, to me, I thought Missouri came out, maybe was the aggressor early on. Out hustled KU a little bit, was first on the floor to the loose balls. You had Mark Mitchell's famous dunk over Paul Mabia, which really got the crowd to it. But once KU settled down, started to make some shots, started to play their game, Trey White hits the three at the buzzer to put them up 8, and then KU just rolled. So I've been really impressed with this team. When they went and played Duke, Randy, I gave them no shot without Darren. I just didn't think it would happen. And they're up 6, I think. Flory gets a second foul. They take him out. They're down 8 at half, I believe. Second half they fight and they got a chance, and it kind of slips away the last 3 minutes. But to me, this team has got a ton of fight. They've got talent. They're just now getting Darren back. Um, I think his absence is going to prove to be maybe important to this team in terms of allowing other guys to find their roles while he was out. And then when you get him back in and everything kind of starts clicking, I think you're going to see a team that has a capability of making some noise in March.
I know this topic is covered pretty heavily, Shay, but how do you think they navigate the situation with Darren Peterson and kind of manage him over the next few games as they gear up for the conference schedule? I mean, what I mean by that is, you're trying to incorporate him back into the lineup, but you have to make sure the chemistry is good. It's not something you can just force.
Right. No, you can't. Here's the thing, Randy. KU fans and everybody will know when he's at his best, when he's getting to the basket, when he's being a little bit more aggressive. Right now he is. He's not the player that he's going to be, and I don't think you can rush him. I think you need to be patient. He is a guy that is extremely serious about his craft or his art. I mean, you wouldn't expect Mozart, and this is kind of cheesy to be. You wouldn't expect Mozart to do anything half-ass. I mean, he's a guy that did it the right way and was serious about his craft and was one of the best. So I think with him, he's the same way. He isn't going to go out there and do anything that's not going to allow him to be at his best. And I just think it's going to take time. I think he's going to have to get it out of his head that, hey, is this going to happen? Am I feeling like this? You just got to get out of your head and play. But I think it'll be a slow process. I think each game he'll get a little bit more comfortable. And he's played with those guys in practice, and they know what to expect. The thing is we don't see or we don't know what's going on in practice, so we don't know the true feel of the situation. No, but I think just listen, you guys saw him last week against Missouri. He was sick. didn't know if he was going to play, and he scores 17 points, hits the first three of the game, and you can tell how talented he is and what he's eventually going to bring. But when he's at 100%, and he's going to get there, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, he's going to bring a different element to this team because of his ability to drive and dish and get the other guys open. Coach said this the other day. A lot of guys have benefited from him not playing, just becoming more comfortable with the roles and such. One guy that hasn't though is Cole Rosario, because he's a catch and shoot guy. And he hasn't been able to do that because Darren hasn't been playing. So, I would expect Cole also to greatly benefit from him coming back simply because of his ability to drive and dish and kind of get his teammates involved.
Give us the latest from the recruiting trail, Shay. I know there's been a recent update on Tyron Stokes. What have you heard on the situation, and what else are you following right now?
Yeah, no, I think Tyron is Coach Townsend was at his first home game. Everybody was excited. I heard he went up and gave Curtis Townsend a big hug, and the relation. Listen, you guys, and Joe Tipton said this, and I talked to Joe, and we've talked. There is a world in which Stokes ends up at KU, but I think the biggest hurdle is the Nike deal. If you can get through that, and that, I don't expect anything to happen anytime soon. I'm thinking spring probably. But yeah, I think the biggest hurdle right now is the Nike thing, and I don't know how that stuff works. I don't know how you navigate through that. But I know there's a solution. I just don't know what that solution looks like. So yeah, I mean, I think KU is right there. I also think Joe wrote earlier in the week that at one time it looked like Kentucky was the favorite. Now it looks like Kansas is kind of. The smoke is all about Kansas right now. So yeah, I think that is something that Kansas fans need maybe to be a little bit excited about and see what happened. Bruce Branch is out there, and here's what I'm going to say, Randy, right now. It wouldn't surprise me if they added a guy that nobody's talking about right now. Maybe a JUCO guy. Yeah, and I don't listen. I don't have any names.
I was going to say, do you know anything? Or
no. I'm just thinking that maybe an impact guy. A guy that and I'm not saying that they won't do that regardless of if they add Tyron or Bruce, but I just think that there's maybe getting a little bit more experience next year. Maybe another shooter. I don't know, but I would keep your eye out for something that maybe isn't being discussed right now.
That's our man Shay Wildeboer on the men's basketball beat. Shay, thanks for joining us tonight.
All right, man. Hey, you guys have a good night.
That's Shay Wildeboer talking some Kansas Jayhawks men basketball. Let's switch gears, bring in our man John Kirby. Time to talk KU football. John, this is our first podcast since the end of the season and signing day. So we're going to get into some football. There's a lot to talk about in general terms, John. Looking back over the season, if you had to sum it up, and I know it's hard to do with one question, but, what are your thoughts on the season and what you saw from Lance Leipold's squad in 2025?
Well, Randy, I mean, listen, it's a disappointment, right? I mean, it's it's a disappointment, and I'm not sitting here saying something that Lance Leipold wouldn't say, or Travis Goff, or people inside the program, or the players.
True.
They're not happy, right? I mean, you think anybody's sitting around the hallways right now happy with the way that this season went? So what I do, Randy, when I look at KU football right now, I'm lumping this year and 2024 in together because it has such a similar feel. Okay. I posted this on the board. I went back and I literally went back and went over quarter by quarter over the last 2 years. And I put this out there in the last 24 games that KU's played over the last 2 years. They've had the lead in the fourth quarter in 19 of those 24 games. Okay. Think about that. Now,
wow.
I get it.
That's crazy.
Lindenwood, Wagner, whatever. They factor into that. But it's still, the fact is they've led in the fourth quarter in 19 of those 24 games. So I think the frustrating thing is the lack of finding ways to win those games that are very winnable. So when you look at it, KU's 5-7 and 5-7. 19 minus the 10, that's 9 games over the last 2 years that they've had a lead in the fourth quarter and they couldn't win. So even, Randy, if the ball bounces different on just 1 or 2 of those games, the narrative flips a little bit, right? Because you're probably in a bowl game or maybe a couple bowl games. So here's the fact of the matter. you feel like when you read our message board or you're on the site, you feel like there's so much negativity sometimes. You feel like things momentum is sliding. But the fact of the matter is, this isn't a bad team. Okay. Bad teams, I said this when I was on Sports Radio 810 last week. Bad teams aren't winning in 19 of the 24 games in the fourth quarter. Okay.
Correct.
Crappy teams are toast by the third quarter. Okay.
And we
Good.
saw that for many years.
We've seen that. We've seen a lot of that in
No
KU
doubt.
football since we've covered it. Okay. So, but my point is, you just hope that they can start finding a way to get over. I don't know if it's a hump or somebody make a play, and we could go back over game after game the last 2 years. But the fact is, they're good enough to have these leads. So, listen, there were times I think that was frustrating to me that I thought in crucial situations, teams were able to just line up and run the ball, and you're kind of like, God, is that coaching? What's going on? Are you not filling the right gaps? Or the kid's not in the right place? There were several times like that. So, I look back. Listen, the offense. Okay, I'll be honest. I'm a little disappointed in the offense. Okay,
Yep.
I mean, Zabrowski was here under Kotelnicki. Lubick is kind of the mastermind of the option game and the quarterback run game. And I'm thinking we're going to see a lot of creativity and just a lot of different things that put yourself in position and keep defenses on their heels. And I just feel like I never saw it. I don't know if the two aren't in sync. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I just never felt the offense getting a groove. Now, I say that, there were games the offense looked good, but I felt like after that Cincinnati game, it just kind of struggled, like they lost their mojo and never got it back. So, here's the issue now. You go into the offseason, okay? Let's just stay with the offense. I mean, you're going to go in, you're going to lose your three of your best linemen. Okay. You lose your top 2 starting running backs. You lose 3 of your top 4 receivers. And you lose your quarterback, who's been in the program for 6 years, that from everything I understand, people go, why did they never bench Jalen Daniels? Well, because their opinion was Jalen Daniels was hands down the best quarterback at the time to keep playing him. So those guys are gone now. So I look at it that this is kind of that time where you're in a grind now. Okay. We'll talk about the portal coming up, but you've got to figure out as a coaching staff how to retool and recreate everything, because you're going to have a lot of new faces. You're going to have kids in the program you got to develop. You're going to have guys coming in from the portal. So, I said this on the board, I don't know, a few weeks ago. In 2023, Lance Leipold said going into the season, they've got to be more physical. And I remember being around the program. Those guys beat the snot out of each other in spring football. They were so banged up by the end of the spring, they didn't know who was going to be able to play in the spring game or not. Okay. But that team was physical that year. So I don't know. Maybe they take a hard look at everything that's gone wrong and figure out, this is what we've got to do. And it's going to be hard. It's not going to be fun, but this is what we're going to get back to. So, that's kind of just my feelings. I'm kind of rambling. I hope I don't put anybody asleep, but that's just kind of my feelings on the year.
Right now, they're going through the process of getting players signed up for next year, and then less than a month away from the transfer portal opening. One of the big discussions around all of this is re-signing players and then agreeing on a revenue sharing amount for each one of them. It's been a hot topic on the message boards, and we felt there was no better guest, excuse me, easy for me to say, to bring in than Jason Booker, who breaks everything down for us right now. He joined John on the studio line earlier today.
This is our first podcast since the end of the football season, and I figured a great guest to have on would be Jason Booker. He's the Deputy Athletics Director for External Affairs and Revenue Generation at KU, and I think he will give us a very good idea of the revenue share and NIL and the hot topic that always comes up on our message board. It feels like every hour, so we're going to cover several topics, and I'm going to welcome in Jason Booker to the podcast. Jason, how you doing?
Doing great, John. Just got back from Vegas, so the Sports Business Journal, basic annual meeting that they do, and got to network and meet a lot of people in our business, and it was great. So excited to be back here in Lawrence.
Did you go out there see Jalen Daniels deal too?
Yeah, yeah. Travis, Colin Sexton, Coach Leipold, and out there supporting Jalen at his event. He was nominated for what they call the Academic Heisman. So a great recognition for an awesome student athlete that we were fortunate to have here for 6 years. So yeah, it was a conference connected, and then also to the National Football Foundation dinner that they do every year.
Well, I wanted to get started, and we've got a lot of people on the site that definitely ask questions. They pay attention to how everything's changed in college sports, and so I want you to introduce everybody. Okay, we've gone from NIL to RevShare, so just tell us about RevShare and how that's all working right now.
Yeah, so coming off of the House case, which has been widely publicized, starting July 1, we can share up to 20.5 million to our student athletes directly out of Kansas Athletics coffers to student athletes. The House case percentages that they sort of said in back pay would be 75% of football, 15% men's basketball, 5% women's basketball, and 5% to other sports. So I think a lot of schools sort of followed that as an initial guide, but it is certainly up to the individual institutions on how that revenue share is deployed. And then, as a part of that, you can also add scholarships. So we were able to add some scholarships to some of our Olympic sports to help bolster and give them some additional opportunities. So really, it's been great for our student athletes to be able to participate in that. Certainly has changed a lot of our mode of operation, and we're certainly in discussions with Rob Ianello, our football GM, and obviously Coach Self in basketball, and Brandon with women's basketball, and making sure that we're all kind of guiding and working together towards how a revenue share gets deployed and is best used.
Okay, so we went from NIL to RevShare, but NIL still isn't gone. Okay, so I mean, I know this is another hot topic, and we'll get into this, but now talk about what NIL now means.
Yeah, again, so starting July 1, the College Sports Commission was introduced. So this is an outside entity that is essentially helping manage the rev share. There's a CAPS program that is actually a software program that's instituted by LBI. They handle Major League Baseball, NBA, and their roster management and cap management. So College Sports Commission kind of helps oversight of that. And then in addition to that, they instituted a platform called NIL Go. So now when student athletes participate in NIL activities, they have to go in and upload their contract and kind of explain what they're going to do for those dollars. So if it's an appearance, an autograph, social media posts, whatever that might be, they go and submit that for each contract. And then that's reviewed by a third party in Deloitte that is assessing whether that is a valid business purpose. That's their number one thing, meaning are they promoting something that is a valid business? Two, how does it meet fair market value standards? And there's a lot of ways that they look at that. Social followers, number of events, time that they spend at these events. And they kind of run a calculation and say, yes, this seems like it would be in a fair compensation range for a student athlete like this. And then it goes through a review process and then it's approved. So that's just one deal. And so every deal the student athlete has to enter in on their own, or a representative can help them enter those deals in for approval. A lot of our job has been educating our student athletes on what that process looks like, how to approve it. Anything over $600 has to go in to get approved. So there are, for example, some of our Olympic sports participated in the Hallmark event that's been going on, Christmas special, and they got some free tickets and things like that. Those are the kind of things that don't have to go into NIL Go for approval if it's under $600. So that's kind of the structure of how it's worked. At the conference, Brian Seeley spoke at 2 days ago. He mentioned that they've approved 12,000 NIL corporate, endorsement agreement deals, and they've also declined 700 deals that didn't pass fair market value and or valid business purpose. So really, this thing's getting built as it's going, right? Because as you're entering deals and things are getting approved, the algorithms are starting to set of what fair market value looks like across the board. Think of 12,000 deals that's feeding the system. Now they know what an average social media post costs for a football player, for a quarterback. So as this thing gets built, it's going to get, it's going to learn on its own and it'll make the process a lot quicker. It's taken some time to get deals approved, and we've had several deals that have been in review for a while. And I think that's a good thing. I think they're vetting and making sure that these are actual, again, fair market value and valid business purpose opportunities.
Yeah, and so when you say we're, you're talking about KU. You're not talking about other people that you talk to out in Vegas. You're talking about KU, right? That has them in review.
Correct. But I
Yeah.
would say in talking to counterparts, I mean, everybody has deals that are approved, deals that are in review, deals that need modified. Quite frankly, there's things that get entered incorrectly, right? We're still talking about 18 to 22-year-olds, and they might misspell something, or they might say, "Oh, I didn't realize this agency," and then it gets kicked back, and they have to review it and modify it. So part of our compliance team's role is when those things get kicked back is communicating with the student athletes and saying, "Hey, this came back. Make sure you look at it and see what you need to revise."
Okay, so this is interesting, and I think this is maybe my loaded question for you on the podcast is you see all these things that, I thought it was interesting that Sataki at BYU was being courted by Penn State, and then he comes back, and there's rumors coming out that he's going to get like 25 million, and I'm sure that's some rev share and some NIL. And then over at LSU, you're hearing these crazy amounts of NIL. So I'm curious when you hear about these. Now, what's also interesting to me, nothing's ever coming from the schools on this, right? I mean, nothing is ever coming from the athletic director, the associate AD, or the head coach of these. It's all sources say, but how when you're throwing these NIL dollar amounts out there on social media, how do you even know if these are all going to get approved that people are talking about?
Well, I think you nailed it, John. One, I think as we've all learned, I wouldn't believe everything you read on Twitter, for one. Two, as you said, a lot of these reports our sources say. I haven't seen an AD, a deputy AD, an NIL director, or anybody come out and say this is specifically what we're targeting for outside the cap opportunities. Who knows where those sources are, right? Those could be agents, those could be who knows, somebody who has a motive to try and move those dollars up. I'm not saying that it's not real, but I would throw caution to the wind of the people and my counterparts that I spent some time with this week, that I don't know how those numbers are real and how they're going to get that much dollars through the system. We certainly have great opportunities for our student athletes. And I think we'll talk a little bit about our Waltz Tetrick partnership and our Learfield partnership. So there's certainly great opportunities that our student athletes are participating in. There's no doubt. But some of those dollars that you hear, I don't know, just again, from people that I've talked to, I haven't heard an explanation yet that would indicate to me that that much money can get moved through the system and approved. And in addition to that, I don't know if people really understand how much time and effort it takes for these student athletes to complete these deals, right? In the collective world, prior to July 1, a student athlete could get paid $50,000 to go fishing for an hour with a donor's son, and that was perfectly legal. That is not the case anymore. And NIL Go, Deloitte, CSC is reviewing, how many activities they're doing for this. So there is going to be some sort of a limit at some point of what one student athlete can activate and do. In particular, we know how busy they are during the season, right? We've seen our student athletes activate with deals on bye weeks and trying to get things in and done and completed. And there's a process, right? Not only do you have to put it through the system as a contract and information, but you actually have to go do the activities and schedule it. Oh, and by the way, they are student athletes as well, right? So to me, going to start to see some things where it will normalize, in my opinion. of what can actually be accomplished in that. But there's certainly strategic partners that we have that are providing great opportunities for our student athletes.
Hey, well, I'll jump right into that because I know, I mean, you were one of the first schools to do a sponsor or partnership, if you will, with like Walsh Tetrick and Learfield. I know the Walsh Tetrick, I believe, came first, and then I think I've seen other people kind of follow. Just talk about that and how they're helping out the student athletes.
Yeah, I would put it in, kind of a couple different buckets. So Learfield's our multimedia rights partner. They essentially have, rights to our marks and to go out and activate and sell corporate partnerships that we share in revenue with. And they've done a great job. If you've looked at some of our Wendy's activations, our Wendy's ride-alongs, that's an example. Ameritrust Credit Union, I could go on. I think this year they've had 20 plus corporate partners that have activated in the NIL space, which is great. It's elevating our partners that are connected with us and their brands. So that's been one really good piece. The second piece, as you talked about, is Walsh Tetrick, so an agency out of Kansas City, who is essentially working with a lot of partners that maybe not corporate partners, but are coming to them and saying, "Hey, how I'm interested in getting involved in the NIL space and with student athletes. How does that work?" And they're able to take somebody like a Mammoth, who's a great field partner of ours, and take a marketing plan and put that together for them and take it through completion, right? And saying, all right, here's the 8 student athletes that they wanted to work with. Here's what the content shoots look like, scheduling, doing the agreements, providing those opportunities to the student athletes, then upload it to NIL Go. So they've been a great resource, and they have been activating directly with Adidas as well. So obviously Adidas has leaned in, and I think it's been widely known that they've been a great partner in the NIL space and activating with our student athletes when we have brand launches with shoes, gear, and that's been really cool to see. Instead of hiring an actor in LA to showcase, what our new shoes look like, they're hiring, our student athletes to promote those brands, and that's awesome, and that's what NIL's meant to be. And so they've been really helping them with being local, feet on the ground with content shoots and production, and then they're outsourcing deals. They worked closely with recently with Jamari and Samaya on a deal with Hawaiian Brothers, and they activated prior to a couple football games where they did meet and greets and autograph sessions on the hill. And so that's been a great, new avenue for us, and led by 2 Jayhawks, Charlie Tetrick and Katie Jennings. So they've got a vested interest in helping there. And then we've got some corporate partners or I would say partners that are directly working with student athletes and going to them and saying, "Hey, we're interested in working with you." There's a really cool Locked-In Ambassador program, if people have seen that. We had 9 football players that participated in that program this year. The Good Game and Zarif started a business that is, connecting student athletes with lessons for kids who are interested, direct one-on-one lessons. And then we did a Meet the Team event with basketball this year that was really successful over at Blue Hawk. So there's a lot of activity going on, John. I will tell you, we are thinking about this every day and finding ways and opportunities for our student athletes to participate.
That's good stuff because I think what you've talked about here just in this short time, I think will make things a lot more clear for people on what it is and where it's going and the adjustments you guys have had to make. And I'm going to end this with a question for you that's not NIL or revenue share, but somebody asked about this on the board today. What's the latest with the football stadium and possible start date on that?
We're excited about phase 2. It's coming. I think you'll start to see some activity around the stadium next week. And, we're excited to have something announced here. I would say soon after the first of the year formally. With these things, in particular, when you're working with developers and hotels, and there's a lot of moving parts. The university is heavily involved in really the lead on phase 2 because of the development in the district that will go along with that. So as you can imagine, a lot of contractual work and design work and making sure renderings are up to date and we're ready to really announce it in a strong way. So you'll see that, I think, soon here after the first of the year. But we're really excited to really complete the vision for the West, North, and East as a part of this project. So yeah, you'll see a lot of activity around that here pretty soon. That was actually one thing that I went out to Vegas for the SBJ conference for was, and we announced our partnership extension with Legends. I was on a panel with them talking about the revenue that was generated from phase one of the stadium and season tickets and premium seating, and kind of, really being one of, the stories out there in college football as far as stadium renovations. And there's some other things going on, but I would tell you that there was a lot of buzz around the investment in Kansas football and what we're doing at this conference. A lot of people coming up to me, hey, tell me how you did that. How does that work? So I always kind of walk away from those events. Quite frankly, sometimes we sort of live in our own, Lawrence bubble, and I think it's great to get out and network and see some other people and have them really say, "Gosh, I've been following along with the project. How great was that?" And saw the videos and photos from the season this year, and you do have a sense of pride of what's going on. Obviously, with Travis and Chancellor Gerard's leadership and at the helm of driving this project, it's just really awesome as a Jayhawk to be a part of it.
That is great stuff. That's Jason Booker. A really good recap there of the NIL and how that's all going down with the rev share, and then, hey, some new info there on the east side and the construction that's coming that I know is going to generate a lot of discussion. Hey, Jason, once again, you've been a guest on the podcast before. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, John. We appreciate obviously all of your members, a lot of our season ticket holders. I know I think I said this before, but we do pay attention. We appreciate feedback. We just sent a survey out last week to get feedback from David Booth, the Booth Reimagined Season 1, and we're excited to listen and find ways that we can continue to tweak and get better. So we certainly appreciate your members and what they do to support the program.
Well, we'll definitely look at getting you on again in the near future, and thanks for your time on this one.
Thanks, John.
That was Jason Booker, and just a really, really good, thorough breakdown of the difference between revenue sharing and name, image, and likeness, and sharing a lot of his thoughts on it as well. Kirby, I know it's been something discussed often on the site. This stuff isn't going away.
No, Randy, it's not. And I've got friends of mine, right, that are about in my era, my age, and they complain about guys getting paid, guys jumping from school to school, and this and that. But it's not going to change. Okay, so I mean, if you're a college football fan, I guess you have two choices, right? You either move with it or decide not to move with it.
So, or move out.
Right. I mean, and it's simple and it's not fun. I know people complain about it. And something you mentioned there before we brought Jason on, you talked about re-signing players. I mean, listen, they are still in the middle of re-signing players. I mean, I believe they hope to have everybody wrapped up by December 31st, because you've got to get a portal strategy. But like I said, this thing's not going away. I think, Randy, for me, I know a lot of people complain about the money. For me, sometimes the money's not the issue. It's the fact that a guy can just go wherever he wants after every year, right? I mean, go here, you don't play.
Constant movement.
Yeah, you don't like it, you go to the next school. That's what bothers me. The money, hey, I get it, man. These guys are going to get paid now. That's good. I wish they had some rule that's still in place that you had to sit out a year, because now that forces maybe a guy to stay in your program. So, I do think that takes away the element from the fans, right? I mean, you remember Houston to see Todd Reesing jerseys and Daryl Stuckey jerseys and Bill Whittemore jerseys. And, there was a time there where Devin Neal jerseys, right?
Yep.
But now we even joked about it on the board that, I mean, if you're in marketing for KU and Adidas is saying, hey, guys, we need 6 players next year to manufacture jerseys to put on the shelves to sell in stores. Who's your 6 guys, right? Like, you don't have 6 guys. You don't know 6 guys to make their jerseys, because you don't know who's going to be atop the depth chart. You don't even know who's going to be on your roster. I mean, it's
Exactly.
pretty crazy. So the times are definitely different, but like I said, the moving around with me is the one that drives me up a wall. But hopefully they'll get it all figured out.
Looking back on this recruiting class that they just signed a couple weeks ago, John, what were some of your biggest takeaways? And maybe tell me weakness or something that, maybe something not positive about this group and maybe something that they've still got to address.
Well, and I wrote about this on signing day. What stood out was locally. Okay, I mean they did a great job locally. Probably the best job I've ever seen a staff at KU do locally, and definitely here in recent years. 6 in-state guys, Oots and Sullivan on the Missouri side, just barely on the other side. Heck, they live 45 minutes from campus. So I mean,
Exactly.
eight guys in total. So this is one of the best recruiting classes. I started covering this in 1999. This is definitely one of the best local classes I've seen. So they really put an emphasis on it. The coaches knew that this was going to be a year where there was going to be up to 15 guys in the state that were possible D1 guys. They identified it. They went out. They built some relationships. And listen, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. They also invested in some of these players. Okay, I mean that's the name of the game, and they felt it was
Hmm.
important enough that they invested in some of these guys to wrap them up and get them signed. So, next year, it's next year's a different deal because they're going to have to figure out something not locally because I don't see near the class locally that we saw this year. I'll tell you one guy I really like. I like Corey Amakri at running back from Michigan. He's a top ranked back there, and I really think he's going to do some good things. I like the 2 linebackers they got. Galbraith locally at Lawrence, and then Joseph Credit out of Texas. Overall, Randy, they wanted to sign around 18 or 19 players. All right. And they were close to that. I think they finished up with 17. You can make those up pretty quick in the portal, right? If you're
Oh, yeah.
if you're 1 or 2 off your numbers, obviously you always look back and talk about the ones that got away. And JJ Dunnigan's a big one, right? But I mean, there's a lot of factors in on that deal. So he's a good player. I'm telling you, I watched him play 3 or 4 times this year. He's really good, but hey, he's Miami bound, so we won't talk about him much on the podcast. And then there was Katie Jones, running back that committed to Oklahoma State. That's where he wanted to go the whole time, and then they hired Morris and they went back after him and he switched his commitment back to Oklahoma State. So, it's a loss, but I mean, you only had him for a couple months. So, one of the big things too, I want to talk about this is, and you're going to see this around the country, is the guys who report early now. Okay. Now, some of that, I actually asked Leipold this at the press conference because listen, kids want to get on campus because once you do, you can start getting your revenue share. Right. So you're going to start to see more and more guys graduate early. And this year, you got 12 high school guys are going to arrive on campus in early. They're going to graduate early, enroll early. They're going to be there on campus in January. So that's the most I've ever seen. But I think you're going to see that number increasing over time.
Next up, we've got the transfer portal coming up very soon. And I think we're going to see how the new transfer date of January 2nd and having just one portal window works out. I'm really interested to see how this how the whole thing plays. What are your expectations for KU in the portal, John?
Well, I mean, listen, they've already got Jibril Conde from Grand Valley State. It's crazy. The portal hadn't even opened yet, but they've already got a commitment from the portal and a guy to sign. So, I mean, at the time, he was on 3 and Rivals top ranked portal defensive lineman in the country. He was committed to Wisconsin, changed his mind, picked KU. Jim Panagos did a really good job recruiting him. So, Randy, I can sit here and we can talk portal, but here we are. What's crazy is December 12th, and the portal opens in what, about 3 weeks here? So
Hmm.
I don't even know what I can talk about in the portal because I don't know who's still coming back on KU's team. They're still trying to get guys signed. I mean, we could wake up tomorrow or over the weekend and find out 5 guys just announced they're going to the portal. And all of a sudden, KU, who went in thinking we're going to need what, 12, 13, 14 guys maybe in the portal. Next thing you know, the number goes to 19. So we really don't know because there's still so much out there of who's yet to come back, who's signed their revenue share agreement. Because once you sign, you're locked in. So I do think that they've already had some pretty good players they've locked up. And then today, listen, Lyric Rawls decides to go to the portal. And that's a tough one. That's the one guy that they've lost that I say, okay, that matters, because he's over 600 snaps, probably one of your best defensive backs. He's been in the program. He's a good kid. So you're like, hey, this guy can be a leader, and he's gone now. So, that one to me is the one that you look and say, okay, that's one that you really hope to keep. So, there are going to be quite a few positions. They're going to go after probably every position but quarterback. So it's going to be an interesting thing. What KU has going for them, Randy, is this late start date. I want to say was it January 19th? I can't remember. Matter of fact, my kid told me the other day when he goes back for class. So I think it was January 19th. So the portal opens on the 2nd, and then you can start bringing official visitors in. You have some of these schools like Arizona State and Colorado and Utah. I saw those start dates are like January 7th, January 10th. So just think about a school like Colorado who's going to have to go out and sign 25, 30 portal guys, and they start class on January, whatever it was, the 9th or something like that. They're going to be in school, and they're going to be just hustling and bustling portal guys in and out. I'm thinking we're to the point now, Randy, guys are going to be signing in the portal without even visiting. I mean, they're going to see like the booth. They're going to get pictures of a video tour of the booth, and they're going to get a video tour of the facilities. And
so crazy.
KU's going to be like, hey, let's do a Zoom with your parents and your agent, and let's get you signed tomorrow morning. I mean, there could be kids signing that never even get on campus. So, there's going to be some staffs with this time limit that are in these early start dates of schools that are under a lot of stress. So, I know this. I know KU has already evaluated over 400 players they expect to go in the portal. Okay?
Wow.
Think about that. I mean, the portal doesn't even open for 3 weeks, but they've already, evaluated that many guys doing background check because they know they're going in the portal, starting to build a board, because this is going to be, we joke about speed dating. This is going to be faster than that. I mean, this thing is going to move real fast. So, I mean, I think deep down, they've got an idea. KU has an idea who some of their targets are going to be. So it'll be interesting. And what else will be interesting, Randy, is here's what they're into right now. They're into this. It's almost like a trial and error system. They changed the portal last year. Now they changed the dates this year. They'll get through this year and go, okay, we didn't like the 2nd through the 16th. We need to make it this date through this date, or we need to open up a second window. I promise you, the system's not going to stay the same. It will change again.
I know this is the way of college sports right now, but it really feels like with all the change, if they can just find some place to create some stability, like whether it's this having just one portal window, whether it's having to sit out, like you noted, if you transfer, you do have to sit, some kind of way to just settle things a little bit. I think it could make such a difference. But for right now, it is it's crazy. 400 players already evaluated. My gosh, can't even imagine that. That will do it for another edition of the Inside Slant podcast from JayhawkSlant.com. For my man Shea Wildeboer, my man John Kirby, I'm Randy Withers. You've been listening to the Inside Slant. We will talk with you again soon. Rock chalk.
This has been a podcast from JayhawkSlant.com.